What are the ways to help replenish the earth so we can flourish? That is the question today.
Can we replenish the earth so that we can flourish and the earth can flourish? As always, I like to look to the very small, and I also look to the very large. So this time I'm going to look at the big ecosystem of the earth itself. And in many ways, the earth is a closed system. We just have one atmosphere, we have one ocean, we have one cycle of water going throughout our system and producing our weather. We have a limited amount of minerals and materials that are available for our modern technological society. It's not absolutely a closed system because our major energy source is really the sun. And so that is one of the big inputs that is coming into our world, our earth. And I see that as our main part of replenishment. And of course, that we have to have every day. We would not get very far without it. But there's also the rest of the solar system where we have interactions magnetically and electrically with as well. But as we're looking at what the Earth does with photosynthesis and the cycles that come through and produce, the water and the oxygen for us, and the food that we eat, and then that becomes the carbon dioxide that the vegetative systems need to be able to actually work and produce the foods, and all the wonderful systems that are working in nature. There's not a lot that humanity can do to replenish those. But what we can do, I can remember back when I was a child in the 50s, 1950s, we used to swim in Lake Erie, and it used to be clean, and we could get the fish out of Lake Erie. And that's about the time that there's a lot of DDT being used and going onto the fields. And there was a lot of raw sewage just going into the lake because the pollution control at that time was, by spreading it out. Like we can throw more things into the air because the air is so big. We can throw more things into the ocean because the ocean is so big. We will get rid of our pollution by dilution. And it wasn't very long that we could see that didn't work. It wasn't very long before there were actually dead areas declared in Lake Erie, and that was in the 70s, where actually there was whole pockets of areas where the fish were coming belly up onto the beaches, whole areas where there was no aquatic life that could flourish, and invasive species were coming in like eels as well to supplant the natural and eatable fish. So we can enact laws and regulations. We can put more controls, we can put more things that control the emissions and things of that nature, and thus allow nature to recover itself. And it was quite amazing. It only took about 20 years for Lake Erie to really come back and start flourishing again, even though there were warnings about certain types of pollutants that were still there and still not safe to swim in certain areas, yada yada. So that's on the macro scale. On the micro scale of the earth, when you're just taking a handful of earth, it's really respecting the organisms that are in it and the way that we can keep these soils in a way that can nourish the plants and have the elements that they need to be able to come into the food that we eat so that we can be nourished as well. So I think there's a real opportunity to just be aware of the food cycle. And there's nothing better than that than growing, gardening, growing your own food, buying from local people, realizing that if you are getting something that is going to be shipped across the ocean, it's going to take 2 weeks or maybe longer if they can't get through the Panama Canal or the other areas. You may not, the fruit is actually picked almost, well, okay, the tomato is considered ripe if it has just a blush of red on it when it is picked and shipped to you. And it reddens by the time that it takes to get to you, and your nourishment is going down. So I guess I'm speaking too much here. But I think to replenish the earth, we really need to be able to use technology wisely. We need to address what the long-term consequences, both upstream and downstream, are to the choices we make as consumers. And I'll leave it at that.